What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Sheehan Show with me, Sean Sheehan, here on Sherdog.com. Today I'm looking ahead to the Bellator Champion Series, San Diego, Nurmagomedov versus Shabliy. It's funny looking ahead to a Bellator event and not having your normal numbered event and stuff, but it's the Bellator Champion Series now, and I'll tell you what, this is a very good card going down in San Diego, over in California, in the United States on September 7th. We have the lightweight main event for the title between the aforementioned Usman Nurmagomedov and Alexandr Shabliy, as well as a number one contender matchup now between Lorenz, Larkin and Levan. Chokheli, whose name I for the first time ever have pronounced correctly, I believe. I went back watching some of these fights, like, wait, have I been saying that name wrong the whole time? Yes, I have. But I like what Bellator are doing that. Just to mention that straight off the bat here, they have this thing now, and there was one of the fights in Ireland was like that as well, the 135-pound contender matchup, where they're literally saying, here, this is a contender matchup. You know, it's not the gold fight, it's the silver fight. The person who wins this, it's even up on the website, I believe, the person who wins this is going to be fighting for the title. And, you know, that's something we've only ever had with interim titles before, or, well, interim titles outside from Tom Aspinall's one, but we'll get over that. But in all promotions, but that's you know, I like that. I kind of like it. Now, you know, I think this fight is a good fight for that. I think Lorenz Larkin deserves it. We'll see with other fights, like if they are the right fit or the right people in the fight, you know. But I think a big issue that a lot of people, myself included, have had with MMA over the last few years is that, like, right, well, and this is a UFC thing, granted, way more than Bellator, or especially obviously PFL, because it's a meritocracy more than any other promotion, is that, you know, oh, this is number one contender fight, you know, Lorenz Larkin, he's definitely going to get the shot next, and next thing, the middleweight championship or the welterweight championship or the lightweight championship is happening, and it's actually someone else who's fighting for the title. So this is basically a guarantee here. Now, injuries can happen, different things can happen, but I do like that. But that is an aside to looking ahead to this card. And as I said, very, very interesting card. We have, you know, the lightweight title, number one contender. You've Douglas Lima against Jeffery. Very, very interesting. We have Yancy Medeiros back here. A very interesting middleweight contender fight, I suppose you would put it, between Jordan Newman and Imam Shafi Aliyev. And those are the main fights I'm going to be looking ahead to today, because I think they do have a big part to play in the next few months of the promotion, or maybe even into early next year, due to the quality of the fighters in it and the quality of the matchups as well. But let's start at the main event, and let's talk about Usman Nurmagomedov versus Alexandr Shabliy. Obviously, we've known what Usman Nurmagomedov has been at, I suppose, for the last while. That apart from that no contest and the issues that came after that with the drug test failure and, you know, getting a kind of a slap on the wrist more than anything else, we didn't get full verification, I suppose, of exactly what happened there. But aside from that, he's been an unbelievable run, obviously, you know, with a record of 17-0 with the one no contest. Now, he's just been running through people since he came to Bellator and obviously picked up the title. It felt like it was inevitable, you know, and we'll talk more about Usman in a second. But Shabliy's a very, very interesting guy, you know, 24-3, hasn't lost since 2016. Before that, it was 2013. So that's one fight he's lost in 11 years. Is not an awful lot, you know. Going back watching a few of his fights, I'll tell you what, I watched his last two fights, Patricky fight and the Musaya fight, which were 25 minutes, 35 minutes, and 39-ish minutes. And I'll tell you what, I don't know if I know Alexandr Shabliy better now than I did then. He's a very not an odd fighter by any means, but like a tough guy to crack down on what he actually does well in terms of how he's so effective. Now, it was funny, talking last week about or a couple of weeks ago, about Dricus du Plessis and his effectiveness. Like, he's not the most pretty of fighters, but he's very effective. And does it really matter how pretty you are if you're effective? Shabliy's the other side of it. Then everything he does is pretty. Everything he does is pristine and prime and good technique, but it's very oddly low output in modern mixed martial arts. Like, I remember years ago, with the dawning of maybe Nick Diaz, or a little bit before that, volume became a massive thing in mixed martial arts. And because of the change in the judging rules, I think that has adjusted a little bit, but still, volume is a thing we take for granted now in mixed martial arts. We all remember watching those Anderson Silva fights where he threw 2 or 3 punches in a round, and we're like, they're booing from the crowd, and like, what's he doing? And things change in the second and third round and stuff. But it's more unusual now that we don't see constant work from fighters all the time on the feet. Now on the ground a little bit different, but on the feet. And Shabliy's almost a throwback to those older days, but he's very effective with it. Like, watching some of the Patricky fight, he it's not that he throws very little and says very very staunch in his defensive state, and when he needs to, he hits you. And it's weird. I was going to say he steps on the glasses, and I knock my glass up. It's not that he kind of steps on the glass. As you can see here, I'm kind of struggling. I'm trying to talk myself into acting like I believe I know what he's at, but I'm honestly not sure. But by God, is he effective? Like, at the end of, I think it was the first round of the Patricky fight. It might have been the second round, but I was kind of, watching 3 or 4 minutes of it and thinking, right, he's touching him a little bit here. There's not too much then, and this is a close enough round. And then Patricky turns at one stage, and his face is swollen, and there's a cut, and there's blood coming. I'm like, wait, actually, like, those few shots he landed have done an awful lot of damage. And I think Shabliy is one of those guys that, he doesn't, because he doesn't output much in terms of, like, he's not running for takedowns, jumping in with strikes, throwing huge volume. When he does hit, it matters, When he does land his strikes, they cause damage. And also watching all of his fights, he's not a guy who gets tired that much. I really think that helps him. Let me just read out as well his last few fights right here, going back to when he was fighting in Fight Night Global, right? So his last fight, 5-round decision, 3rd round finish, 2nd round finish, then 4 decisions in a row, and then a 2nd round finish again, right? For a guy who is a top fighter, who only really started fighting top fighters in his last 3 fights. Now, he finished 2 of them later in the fight. That's an awful lot of non-first round finishes, if you want to put it that way. Now, you go back through his record, and he obviously has more of them when the levels were a little bit less. But when he's gotten to this level, his fights are long fights, is the point I'm making there. Took Musayev out. That was a bit of an odd one because it was, the lower shot, that was a body shot or whatever it was. But the premise one, he went in there for the first round and played with his food and finished him in the 2nd round, and the decisions are similar enough to that. I wonder how that's going to work against Usman Nurmagomedov to get to the fight. I wonder how that's going to work, because Usman is a similar fighter, but way more volume. He is the modern version of the throwback that I was talking about Alexander being. He is very solid offensively and defensively, but he throws his jabs constantly. Very good. Obviously, we can talk about the wrestling and stuff in a second, but throws a lot of high kicks and things like that. And if Shabliy could give you 45 seconds without throwing a punch, but without taking a punch, in that time, Usman has probably landed 5 punches without taking a punch, if that makes sense. Now, a lot of that is allowed by an opponent throwing volume as well. What's Usman going to look like against a guy who doesn't throw much and a guy who's very good at picking shots? Like, you're going to have to be ultra good at picking your counters to pick off someone like Shabliy. Like the Musayev fight, and I think it was Big John wasn't called it, and he made a great point at the start of this fight. is like Mosaiev usually fights in a very different way. He's usually gone out throwing his shots, but now he's trying to pull Shabliy in to get him to throw shots so he can counter him because he doesn't want to get drawn into the game of Shabliy. He obviously did what I just did, watched him and kind of got confused by him, and you could kind of see that throughout the fight. You know, sometimes this might be an odd segue here, but watching people talk about strikers in soccer. Sometimes, you know, people, they run this way, they run that way, they head the ball here again. Sometimes the best thing to do is stand still and wait for the ball to come to you, you know? And I feel like that's the type of fighter Shabliy is. Now, having said that, let's get more into the fight here. Like, will Shabliy be able to adjust, let's say if Usman comes out and he lands 5 or 6 jabs in him, right? Because those 5 or 6 jabs that Usman lands, he's a really good jab. He can hit from far away to also Shabliy's 5'9", Usman 5'11". Fights long as well, you know. He does fight long. That will be an advantage for him, especially for those leg kicks and head kicks as well. Can he adjust out of his game if he is behind and if he's continually behind? Like, it's fine for 1 round or 2 rounds, but if this goes into the 3rd, 4th, and 5th, you can't just keep fighting kind of a low output game that Shabliy fights. Now, what I'm saying here, I hope no one takes it as a negative by any means. It's just the way he is. It's extremely effective because, as I say, you almost frighten your opponent into trying to do something. Like, he's doing nothing, I'm going to have to do something. 2 of us can't stand here. And then when they do that, he picks them off. Just picks them off really easily. And again, from that defensive base, that's always so good out of him. He's such an interesting guy. So, to throw him in there together to maybe do a bit of a prediction here before we maybe move on to other few fights. I'd wonder how the wrestling is going to play into this, because Shabliy's not the type of guy to get taken down. Obviously, either is Usman. Both of them are very happy to take you down themselves, right? But also both of them are very happy to fight on the feet. I struggle sometimes with Usman Nurmagomedov because I come into one fight, I think it was the Benson Henderson fight I remember coming into, and I just watched that back there an hour ago again and kind of had flashbacks. I'm like, he's going to box with Benson, he's going to fight in the feet, and then what was it, 30 seconds into the fight's on the ground. Well, he did knock him down there as well, I suppose, but he's very, very happy, very willing, and very able to take guys to the ground as well. Has 6 submissions in his 17 wins, 35% in there as well. So, look, who do I think would have the better of the wrestling? I would probably lean Nurmagomedov. I just think there won't be much wrestling. Now, I have maybe a little bit of a bias towards no wrestling at times, because I often do these previews. I'd be like, this is what's gonna happen on the feet, and I'm like, and there might be wrestling, and then the whole fight is like 25 minutes of wrestling. But look, watching bits and pieces of both of them, both have good ground and pound, both have good top games. You know, as I said, 35% of fights for Usman, 29% for Shabliy, but it's still 7 submissions in his career. He hasn't had one in a while now. Having said that, it's back in 2014 since his last submission win, but he had a lot of submission wins around there, heel hooks and arm bars and stuff like that. So, you know, just to mention, I think this is going to be a striker matchup. I think it's going to be 5 rounds. Honestly, we'll have the betting show out during the week, but I would be surprised if there was a finish here. I think it's going to be close, but I just think it's weird because, like, I just started off by saying the non-volume is what Shabliy lives on, and it is, and it's a benefit for him. But I think the volume of Nurmagomedov is going to win the fight. There's a reason why mixed martial arts changed. There's a reason why volume became a big thing. And not that Usman Nurmagomedov is Nick Diaz or anything here. By you know, you could call him low output as well. But again, effective. But compared to Shabliy, he is Nick Diaz. So I think that jab of Nurmagomedov is going to be better than Shabliy's. I think Nurmagomedov is defensively too good to allow Shabliy to do to him what he does to other people. And I think that'll win him the fight, to be honest. Again, the jabs, the high kicks, the low kicks as well from Usman are very good. If he can avoid that power, and not just the one power shot, but the 5-6 power shots, the combinations inside as well from Shabliy, very, very good. And you know, on the break as well, Shabliy loves a spin and loves a big shot off the break. Avoid them, and I think you can win the fight. So the prediction is Usman Nurmagomedov to get the win. All right. Do you know what I'm going to do here now? Before we go any further, I'm going to give you all my predictions first because I know people like that. So here's all the predictions together. We'll go Usman. We're going Lorenz, Larkin. I think I'm going to go. I think I'm going to go Aaron Jeffery. We'll get to that fight in a second. I'll go Inabe. I'm going to go with Yancy, although I'm not sure the bet in that fight is going to look. I'm going to go with Aliyev. I'll go with Torado, Meredith, Hockett, and Cortez, although I don't know much about either of them. Anyway, those are predictions. Now, people are always giving out to me for not giving my predictions altogether. There you go. Second fight of the night, for me, as we go down, Lorenz Larkin versus Levan Chokheli. Chokheli. It's like choke with a Lee at the end of it. Chokheli. No, Chokheli. I said it wrong again. I might have said it wrong at the start. At the start as well. It's Chokheli. Levan Chokheli. But I'll tell you what Levan Chokheli is. He's a damn good fighter. And you know what he is? He's a big, muscly, beefy man is what he is. And he's not the only one. Himself and Jordan Newman are very similar. That on the feet now. They're different fighters all around, but on the feet, very, very good. Chokheli, 77% knockout history. 6'1", 27 years of age, 13-2 with a no contest in his career. The two losses are to Goyoti Yamauchi and Kyle Crutchmere in 2022 and 21, respectively. Won his last 3 fights in a row. Front kick knockout. People probably remember Sambahu Massi beat Michael Lombardo and Roman Faraldo as well in there, who was a highly touted up-and-comer at the time, and beat Vinicius de Jesus as well, a fight I watched back there earlier on today. Larkin at the other side of it, then 37 years of age, and obviously, as we know, UFC veteran with 14 knockouts with a 26-8 record, two no contests thrown in there as well. 18 of his fights have gone to decision in his career, so that's quite a lot. But he's had a lot of finishes recently, his last 2 fights in a row. Knocked out Mohamed Berkamov and Alan Dominguez. That Alan Dominguez fight was, you know, a bit of a layup for him. He did lose a split decision in the middle of those to Andrei Koreshkov, but he knocked out Kyle Stewart as well back in 2022. And, you know, he's been on a good run, as I said, apart from that Koreshkov fight. This is an interesting one because I'm a massive fan of Lorenz Larkin. I love the way he fights. Very good takedown defense, very good leg kicks, very good jab, power. The power, the right hook, obviously is what he's known for, but the big left hand as well. And he's just a good, well-rounded fighter. The way he talks about MMA as well, no BS out of him. And he isn't the guy to me who looks to, what did I say he was, 37 years of age. He doesn't look it. You know, and by the time this fight happens actually to be 38 years of age, I'm recording this a little bit early. Happy birthday, Lorenz. Is probably out in the day your birthday or the day after or something. But I wouldn't take any of that into account really. Now, again, at 37, 38 years of age, that can turn quickly, but I don't think it will here. But he's fighting obviously a lot younger of a guy, 27 years of age, as I mentioned. And Chokheli, to me, I said it a minute ago about him being a big kind of a brood of a man. He's like, do you know what he reminds me of? Do you know when you're like 12, right? Or even younger, like 10 years old, and there's like, you know, you're out playing soccer on the road or whatever, and then there's like a 16-year-old lad there, and you're like, oh Jesus, he's the he's the biggest. Will I ever be that tall? Do you remember that used to happen when you were young? He reminds me of that. He's just a big brute of a guy, and he's bigger than most of the guys. He's fighting, you know, and not that he's that tall. He's 6'1", like, but at welterweight, at middleweight type of thing, and this fight is at welterweight, if I'm not mistaken, and it is indeed. It is. He's just a big guy there, and I think he uses it very, very well. Like, he moves well. He's an athlete, which you're going to have to be against a guy like Lorenz Larkin. I think if you don't have that athleticism and the quickness that he has, and very few people have the quickness Lorenz Larkin is, but go with me here for a second. If if you can't compete, let's put it that way, you're in big trouble. And is Chokheli able to completely compete with him? Is he going to be as fast as him? I don't think so. But I think for a guy that big, I think he has the ability to do it, right? You look at his record, right, and you see all the knockouts, and watching some of his fights, like, he's well able to get the fight to the ground and get on top of guys as well, and heavy ground and pound and stuff like that, but he does like to fight on the feet. And when you're fighting Lorenz Larkin, it's very, very, very dangerous to do that. The guys that have beaten him fighting like that, are the guys that have beaten him over the last few years: Koreshkov, Daly, Lima, Tumanov, Dr. Brunson and them. Like, there's a level there, I think, of ability on the feet to, even if you take him down, right, and were to beat him on the ground or whatever, you have to have a certain level on the feet to beat a guy like Lorenz Larkin. And does Chokheli have that? That's the question I would ask here. Because, as I said, big brute of a man, uses the athleticism well, throws the hands and throws the feet well. But does he do it with the level of technique? And I don't think it's even technique with Lorenz Larkin. Now, very good technique and all of that, but very smart. Just lands at the right time and use that speed, use that technique, uses, worldly wise. All of those 36 fights that he has, he uses all of them, and that's kind of the reason why I'm going to pick him to win here. I just think he might be the cuter, as we'd say here, the cuter fighter in there. Do people understand when I say the word cute? They're probably sure. The people, let me know in the comment section below. Like, he's just a little bit smarter, a little bit more worldly wise, cute. He'd be cute. Jesse's cute old fox. That's why I think Lorenz Larkin will win. No great technical breakdown here or anything, but I feel like on the break, Chokheli will put it on him and put it on him and put it on him, and then there will be a break. There will be a time where the fight is unnatural for Chokheli and it's natural for Larkin. And that's nothing against Chokheli, right? You just can't be as natural as a guy like that when you're 15 fights into your career. When you made your debut in 2016. 2016, Lorenz Larkin left the UFC in 2016. He made his debut in 2009, but amateur MMA 2008. He has 7-8 years in you, and probably 10 years in terms of training and all of that. That's why I'm picking him here. That's why I'm going to pick him. Right, let's have a look at a couple of the other fights. This Douglas Lima and Jeffery fight, going to be a tough one. I believe I picked Jeffery there earlier on. Again, I hate giving picks, and I just like looking at fights. I did not expect Douglas Lima to go in there and beat Castillo Vancinas. Right, he lost 4 fights before that. MVP, Jackson Forstian MVP, Amasov and Musasi in descending order. And I was kind of, not that I was writing off Douglas Lima or anything, but I'm like, look, Douglas was a great fighter. He's 36 years of age now. Obviously, then he was a little bit younger, but maybe that spark, maybe he was the top level guy for years and years and years. Maybe that's, maybe we're just at the end, it happens. But then coming back, beating Castillo Vancinas, a guy who, to me, was number 1 contender at the time, or would have been if he had won, because, he's beaten Fabian Edwards. Obviously, Fabian is fighting for the title now again. And that middleweight division, in all middleweight divisions, I suppose, aren't the most stacked in the world. But, Jeffery wasn't too far away either. He lost to Fabian after beating Dalton Ross. He lost to John Salter as well. Douglas was the type of guy who was, again, not the highest output fighter in the world, not like Shabliy, and I think that really hurt him for many years. And you could see him almost fight with himself to kind of let the hands go a little bit, and I hate saying let the hands go because it's one of those kind of crutches of mixed martial arts analysis, but here we go anyway. But I feel like something happened in the Castillo Vancinas fight where he did, and I'm thinking after that, like, can he continue to do that? And if he can, and he looks very, very good here, he'd beat Aaron Jeffery, then why am I thinking Aaron Jeffery has a chance? I think at this stage of his career, I think there might, and up at middleweight as well. I think the wrestling might be an issue. Like if you think about it, he was fighting Jackson, Page, Amasov, Mousasi before that. Down at welterweight, comes up. Van Cenis is a little bit of a wrestler, but he's mostly a striker. I think that Aaron Jeffery, the big dirty American wrestling, although he's Canadian, sorry, Jesus. No, that was a bad mistake out of me there. Bad mistake. But he'll make it dirty on you, try to pull you to the ground. The betting isn't out yet, but I feel Jeffrey might be a bit of an underdog. I don't know if I talk myself out of my my Jeffrey Vic here, but I just have a feeling that Costello Van Steen's fight for Douglas Lima, I was thinking about this beforehand, was it a bit of a once off? Was there something in that matchup that just made Douglas Lima fight, in a more effective way? Like I always thought, and this is a very big departure, but Izzy against Costa, I always knew that Adesanya was going to destroy Costa in that fight and be made look good, just because Costa is too slow and not good enough of a technician. Now, I'm not saying that necessarily about Costello Van Steenis, but when you go up a weight class and you fight a guy who's, again, a slight step slower than what you have been fighting, who you've better technique than, does it just kind of open up the ability you have there? Now, I don't think Jeffrey is as good as Van Steenis, to be honest, at striking, but he can do other things. He can make it nasty, and no, I'm going to change my pick. Screw it, I'm changing my pick. I'm going Douglas Lima. I'm changing it. I'm going Douglas Lima. Anyway, let's move on. The next fight I want to talk about is Jordan Newman against Imam Shafi Aliyev. And actually, we'll get that one second, just to touch on the other couple of fights that come before us. The Inabe versus Stiller fight. Inabe, 7-1 now, 33 years of age. She's had a couple of fights in all of her fights apart from the last one were in Bellator, and then she went to the PFL, obviously lost to Denise Kielholz. She has good power, I suppose, for that weight class, if you want to put it that way, the flyweight weight class. And she's coming in against the judoka now in Mackenzie Stiller. This is her first jump. Well, it's not her first jump. It's her jump back to Bellator. She fought Maria Henderson and Kira Pacheco, won against both of them. They went outside and got another fight, and she'd a good few amateur fights as well. So that should be a fun one. Inabe's, she can fight all around. Probably fought to the higher level, fighting the likes of Kielholz, but Stiller looks like one of those people who's just kind of hard to beat, and we'll see how that goes there. But we'll go with it. We'll go with Inabe in that one. Yancy in against Zora. Zora 14-1, 29 years of age. I've watched bits and pieces of him before. I think I covered his Eagle FC fight he had the last time. He's a guy who has fought on the scene, obviously, over in Russia and on. He's fought some very, very good guys there. And finished most of them. He's 9 finishes in his career. Well-rounded guy, and Yancy is one of those, you can never rule him out if he can get his game going. Like, look what he did in his last couple of fights, the Emmanuel Sanchez fight and the Charlie Leary fight. Again, Yancy was one of those guys, for the last 4 in a row, you kind of write him off. But looking forward to seeing how he gets on coming into this one. And let's talk about, we'll get to the Newman one. We'll get to the Newman one in a second. Herman and Kikuri. Herman, the Titan, 34 years of age, coming out of San Diego. So he's one of these local guys. If you remember, he lost to Berkamov at Bellator 300. He had a couple of fights in the BFL, but I think he was retired for a while, or he was gone anyway for a good while. Yeah, 2018, he fought Jake Shields before that Berkamov fight, and Magomed Karamov before that. So he's back for another run, and obviously home-time fighter here, and his opponent coming out of Japan has a lot of KOs, 6 KOs in his 9 fights. fought once in Bellator and got a quick knockout there and looked impressive. So, you know, the guy who's been around for a long time, 34 years of age, against the younger up-and-comer at 29. We'll see how that goes. I think Torreira and the home crowd and all of that, it might help him. Bryce Meredith then on the undercard as well. Obviously, he's 6-0 now, one of their best up-and-comers. Josh Hogan as well. He was impressive in his debut. And we destroy with flights kicking off. But they ended here, Jordan Newman and Imam Shabliy Aliyev. Again, I was talking about Chokheli earlier on, and him and Newman to me are very similar in type of that big brother, you know, the 16-year-old versus the 10-year-old type of thing, you know, just big hunks of men inside there. Only 6 foot, but 29 years of age. His opponent 6'2", 26 years of age. But Aliyev is a kind of one of those big guys too, so I don't think there's much in it here. I'll tell you what, right? So Newman, obviously coming from the wrestling background, he's had all these fights in Bellator. You know, they're constantly talking about him improving and getting to the next level. I couldn't find his last fight against Matthew Perry, but that was a quick key lock anyway. From I watched it at the time, but what I remember of it was pretty quick to the ground and pretty quick finish. But I watched his Jaden Talker fight. It was on YouTube, and a lot of striking. That the fight did finish late in the second round via rear naked choke, but it was after kind of the fight wasn't long enough. Was it a knockdown or a trip or whatever it was anyway? But it felt like he was trying to strike in that fight and trying to show at this level he's able to strike, or trying to bring on his striking, and it wasn't there yet. Now that's nearly 2 years ago at this stage. And Imam Shabliy Aliyev, he was supposed to fight against who was Austin Vanderford. And I remember watching tape on him before that, and thinking, God, this guy is very, very good. Like a lot of his stuff is takedowns and ground and pound as well, but you know, he can fight on the feet, and he's fighting, you know, in AKA one of those guys. I think Newman needs to get this fight to the ground, and I think he needs to do it quick. This is an unusual type of fight as well, right? 9-0 against 6-0, two of your best up-and-coming prospects. And it's funny, Bellator are doing this now, like they're putting Paul Hughes in there against AJ McKee. And, you know, it's very interesting. Now, Newman as well, just to mention as well, fighting out of Rufus Sport, that's going to improve his strike, and we know what that gym is like. But I don't know if in that time he can improve his striking enough. Now, Imam Shabliy Aliyev, you know, I don't think he is at the level of an Usman Nurmagomedov or those either, where his striking is on par with his wrestling, and it's very, very good striking either. Now, it's good striking, and I think it's way better than Newman's striking from what I saw. Now, again, a lot could happen in 18 months to 2 years, but I would expect Newman to go out and be very, very defensive on the feet, try to set up the takedowns and try to get him. The problem is, Aliyev might be doing the exact same thing, but with better striking. So if you have better striking, and this is a roundabout way about going at this, but if you have better striking, you can set up your takedowns better and defend against his takedowns even better. So Newman, and the biggest issue here for both of these guys is, especially Newman, I think, they're not used to being on their backs. They're used to being the offensive wrestlers, the dominant wrestlers, the ones who are winning fights in that way. The second one of these lads go on their back, and if they're held down by their opponent, they're going to find it very tough. Now, I think it'll be very tough for either of them to hold either of them down at the same time either, because they're both, as I said, both big, strong men. I don't think this is going to be a classic fight by any means. I don't think it's going to be rock'em sock'em robots, but I think, you know, everyone watching this, your hardcore MMA fans are going to really enjoy this fight. I think it's going to be a lot of, you know, a lot of takedown attempts, a lot of transitions, a few sprawls. I think it's going to be very interesting. I just, the one thing I hope doesn't happen, it turns into like a boring 15-minute kickboxing match, which it definitely could. But at the same time, I'm not sure if it will, because I think Aliyev probably will recognize that he's a better striker and open up a bit. And I think Newman, if that does happen, I think he's the type of guy who might open up himself and throw a few shots, knowing that, like, well, I'm gonna, you know, I'll either go out on my shield or with it. So I'm looking forward to this. I think it'll be a good fight. That's kind of my pick of the undercard fights, and I think it'll be a good one. So that is your preview for Bellator Champion Series in San Diego. Goes down over in the Pechanga Arena on September 7th. Tune in to watch it. We'll have you covered here on Sherdog.com throughout the whole week. All right, I will leave it there. That's all from me. My name is Sean Sheehan for Sherdog.com. Thank you very much for tuning in to the Sheehan Show. We'll see you all next time.